the other room, we've got a colony in there with 25,000 bees. They're all behind glass, nothing to worry about. When the bees come out in there, they come out the bottom of the box, they go up to the skylight, and you've got a hole up there where they get to the outside. So those bees work the flowers as well, and then they come back in the box. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you the different equipment that beekeepers wear when they work the bees. And I brought along a fellow beekeeper to help me show you. Now, some of you might know this beekeeper. Now, if anybody has a camera and you'd like to take a picture of it. Now, this is the veil that we wear, and there's straps that come underneath our arms. And we put our veil on, and we put the white boiler suit over the top. And this just protects our face so the bees can't get at your face. Now, sometimes we have to work the bees, and it's not a very nice day, and they're not very happy about it. So what we do is we wear these big, long gloves that come up our arms and protects our hands. Now, this smoker that Thordy's got, inside, we get a little fire going. Now, I burn cardboard in mine, but it doesn't make any difference what you burn. You get a little fire going in there. You want to press that button to show them how it works. Push the bellows, and smoke comes out the top. Now, what we do is we smoke the entrance to the beehive. This is the entrance to the beehive, all across the front there. Now, there's guard bees all across the front of the beehive. Every bee coming in has to be checked by the guards. If they're not from that hive, they don't let it in. And if it still tries to get in, then they'll sting it. And they can tell if that bee's in their hive by the smell of it. So when we throw a bit of smoke in the entrance, it just throws their sense of smell off a bit. And then we can get in and do what we have to do. And a couple minutes later, the smoke is gone, the guards are back to normal, and then we can get out. So it just helps us calm down a bit. Right, Thordy. Now what we'll do is I'll put this equipment on the table. And afterward, when we have our little walk around, you can have a good look at it, and you can handle it as long as you're gentle. Okay? We'll put these things up here. Thanks, Libby. That's a good helping again. Now I'm going to show you the difference between the old-fashioned beehive and the modern one. Now this is the old-fashioned beehive. This is what we used to use. Now this is called a scalp. Now bees get wax from their own body. They build the cells that they put the honey in and that the queen lays the eggs in. And no matter what you put bees in, they'll start building the wax down from the top. So they make their wax cells, they store the honey inside here, and they come and go quite happily. But the problem with these old-fashioned beehives is when you want to take the honey off, you've got to turn them upside down, get another skep and put it up here. And you bang the sides very hard. You drive these bees out of here into the other skep. And you take a nice sharp knife and you cut all the wax out of here. With the little grubs and the honey and everything, you mash it all up and strain it through a cloth. It's a very messy job, and we don't really like having to kill all those little grubs. So although this is a very attractive beehive, it's just not very practical. So this is the modern one. This is the one we use today. And you'll see different shapes on the outside, but inside, beekeepers all use the same equipment. They'll all be the same. Now inside here, there's 12 of these frames. You'll all get a good look later, even the ones in the back, don't worry. There's 12 of these frames inside. Now we give them a sheet of beeswax foundation, just to give them a bit of a start. The bees don't need any help from us to build wax cells. They can do it very well themselves. But if you let them do it, they build it right from the wood, and they tend to make them rather wavy. We like them nice and straight. So we give them that sheet for our benefit, not for theirs, because they don't need it. So when you give them a straight sheet like that, this is what they do with it. They use the wax in their bodies, and they bring out the cells, six-sided cells, and they store honey in there. They put the eggs in there, and they put a beeswax cap over the top. And if we want to take the honey off, we take a sharp knife, just cut the cap off, and then spin it out. Now, some of these combs are 40 years old. These are my father-in-law's passed down to me. We don't take any honey from these old combs, and we don't take any honey from down in these bottom boxes. We put the queen bee down in here, and then we have a special screen we put over the top. There's a lot of little holes in here. We'll probably see the queen a bit later in here, and you'll see she's bigger than the other bees. She can't get through these holes. So if you put it over the top of the box, the queen has to stay in the bottom. So she lays all her eggs down below. Now we put another box on top, and that's our honey box. The little worker bees are small enough to get through these openings. And those little bees will always put honey above the babies. That's what honeybees do. If you see a bee's nest in the wild, you'll always see the honey above the babies. Now the bees in there and the ones in the other room are wild animals. You don't tame them and you don't change them. What you do is study them, you find out what they do normally, and you take advantage of it. You work around them and you work with them, but you don't change them. So we know they always put the honey above the babies. So we just slide that screen in between, and we'll get all the eggs down here, and we get all the honey in the top. We keep it separate that way, and you can have comb honey, where you eat the wax and the honey together. So we keep it separate. Now, who knows what bees get from flowers aside from nectar? Aside from nectar. Exactly. Now, if you look at this picture here, bees have special baskets on their back legs to carry the pollen. So they get two things from flowers. They get pollen and they get nectar. To breed, to get more babies, more bees, they have to have pollen. This is the pollen baskets right here. Now, if you remember nothing else when you go away here today, remember this. You should all know this. There's two very important parts to flowers. There's a male part and there's a female part. That's right, to flowers. There's a male part and a female part. This is the male part right here. That's where they get the pollen, from the male part. That's the pollen. It's very sticky, and as they collect it, they get it all over the hairs on their body, as you can see there. As they move around the flower, they move the male part of the flower over to the female part. And once they do that, once they move the male to the female, then you can get seeds. But you don't get any apples, oranges, melons, you get nothing until you get that male over to the female. And bees do it very well. Now, you know this yellow flower you see in the countryside? There's a lot of it, oilseed rape. Well, they get the male to the female a different way with that flower. The wind blows the male over to the female. Then the flower sets a seed and it fills with oil. The farmers cut the crop, crush the seeds, and they sell it as cooking oil. But there's other flowers where you have to have insects to get the male to the female. Now, down in Kent, we have a lot of apple orchards where they grow all the apples. They pay beekeepers 20 pounds for every beehive they bring in. Now, why do they do that? Other insects can do this. Bumbles do it, wasps do it. But they pay beekeepers 20 pounds a hive because we can bring in 50,000 bees in one box. And they want as many insects as they can get. Now look at this picture here. This is a picture of a queen. You'll probably see her a bit later in that hive. Now she's long and slender compared to most of the bees. Most of them are worker bees. Almost all the bees in a beehive are females. This is what we call the perfect one. She can lay eggs and she can mate. The worker bees are females as well, but they can't lay eggs and they can't mate, but they are females. Now the queen lays a few of the male eggs. Now males don't have a sting. They don't help defend the colony and they don't do any work. They don't go to the flowers. The only purpose of the males is to mate with the queen. And they mate up in the air. The queen will come out one time, up in the air. The males will chase her. She'll mate with about 8 or 9, come back in the hive, and she'll never leave again. She'll do nothing but lay eggs. And at the end of the season, all the queens are mated. They don't need the males any longer. So they stop them coming in the hive. And they have to be fed. So they starve to death. No males live over the winter. They all die at the end of the season in August. Okay? Has anybody ever seen a swarm hanging off a tree? Well, when our bees get very crowded in those boxes, there's nowhere for the queen to lay any more eggs. There's no room to store any more honey. So the queen will leave with half the bees and start another colony. And when she comes out of the box with half the bees, she lands on a tree, on the branch of a tree. The bees all hang with her. Now, we like to get swarms. We like to get them. If we can get those swarms, we've got another bee colony. So people call us up and say, Mr. Beekeeper, there's a swarm in my back garden. Can you come over and get it? And we get over there quickly because that swarm may be gone by the time we get there. So we come over and we see them hanging on the tree. Queen's in the middle. We've got a container with us. You can take them in anything, even a cardboard box. You get it underneath them, you let them hang in it like that. And slowly you reach up and you grab a hold of the top of the branch. And you can shake it like that as hard as you can. And all those bees will drop down in the box. And as long as you get the queen, they'll stay. If she's still up on the branch, back they'll go. You've got to get the queen. And you put them in your box, you go back and put them in the beehive, and you've got another bee colony for nothing. A lot of times we go to the police and we go to the fire department, we say, call us. Tell us if anybody calls about a swarm because we want to get them. Now, we don't want our bees to swarm because if the queen leaves with half the bees, there's not many left to get us any honey. So this is what some beekeepers do. Look at this picture here. Now, that queen's got her abdomen down in the cell. She's laying an egg at the moment. They put a bit of red paint so you can see her a bit easier. But if you look very closely at that picture, you'll see that one of her wings is clipped. Now, sometimes beekeepers clip one of the wings of the queen. So that if that queen decides she's going to take off with half the bees, as she comes out the front of the box, she'll drop down because she can't fly. And when those other bees get up in the air, they'll realize there's no queen. And back in that box they'll go. They won't go anywhere without a queen, because the queen's the only one that lays eggs. If there's no queen, there's no colony. They just die. They must have a queen, and they know it. Now I think what we'll do is we'll show you this video, and it's only about 8 or 9 minutes. Now I want you to look at this video very carefully. It takes the camera inside the hive, and it will show you all the activities. Now, all day long, bees send out scout bees. They go around to the different flowers, and they take a sample. They come back in the hive, and they do special dances. You'll see these dances in the video. These dances tell the other bees which direction the flower is and how far it is from the hive. And then they do the most important thing. They give them a sample. And all the bees are interested to know how much sugar's in that sample, because some flowers are very much more attractive to the bees than others. They'll go buy a lot of flowers to get to one flower that has a lot of sugar. So some flowers are very much more attractive. The other bees taste it, they go out on it, they come back and do the dance. It happens very, very quickly. You get thousands of bees out on the flowers. Now, flowers don't give out honey or nectar all day long. Some flowers 2 hours in the morning, other flowers in the afternoon. So as soon as one flower stops, the bees will immediately go to another flower, because the scouts are going out all the time. As soon as one flower shuts off, they're out on another one. So you watch this video and watch this dancing very closely. And after we see the video, we'll have a little walk around, and you can look at the bees, and you can handle the equipment and look at the picture.
His way of fertilizing the plants. This free pollination service is worth $60 million to the nation's agriculture every year. There are approximately 25,000 million bees in this country. Some 50,000 live in each hive.
50,000 in each box.
10 to 15,000 from each hive are foraging for nectar every day. The bee returns to her own hive heavily laden, for she may carry a load nearly her own weight. As she approaches the hive, she is checked by the discerning antennae of the guard bees. Should a strange bee try to invade the hive to steal honey, the guards fight it off, menacing it with their stings. The barbed sting in the worker's tail is her only weapon. She cannot withdraw it, so in using it, she gives up her life.
She dies when she stings.
As the forager moves inside the hive, she enters a highly organized communal system unrivaled in efficiency outside the human world.
Watch this closely.
The dance of the bee. Scout bees, moving in a figure 8, indicate the direction of the nectar source. Its distance from the hive is shown by the speed of the dance.
It's all done in the dark. They're picking up the vibrations.
The scout bee stops to pass nectar to other foragers, enticing them to gather nectar from the same source. Returning foragers convey nectar to the mouths of other worker bees responsible for honey storage. This process of passing the nectar from mouth to mouth adds enzymes, and together with the hive temperature of 90 degrees, lowers the moisture content from 70% to less than 20%. This turns the nectar into honey, which is placed into storage cells. When the honey has ripened, it's capped with beeswax. The pollen, which provides the protein of the bee's diet, is transferred from her pollen baskets and packed into cells.
It's all different colors depending on the flower.
Work is unceasing. As cells are filled, so new ones must be constructed. The workers hang in chains over the construction area. Wax is secreted from glands in their abdomen, drawn out with their legs, chewed into little balls, and carefully placed in position. Bees are inspired engineers, constructing their six-sided cells to hold liquid by capillary action. Bees maintain a constant hive temperature by fanning their wings in hot weather or clustering together if the temperature drops. Meanwhile, young workers carry out their allotted tasks. They clean and polish cells for honey storage, and more especially to provide a place for the queen to lay her eggs. The male bee, or drone, is larger than the workers. He does no work and is fed by the workers, for his only purpose in life is to service the queen when she leaves the hive to mate on the wing. high in the sky, only the strongest drones mate with her, and their lives are terminated by this very act.
They die when they...
According to the condition of the colony, or when honey is scarce, the drones are driven out to die. The queen bee is the mother of the colony. She is larger than the worker, who is an undeveloped female. The queen is cleaned and fed by the workers and is literally an egg-laying machine, capable of laying up to 2,000 eggs a day.
2,000 eggs
She
a day.
inspects each cell before she lays an egg deep inside it. The queen's eggs hatch into larvae after 3 days. For the next 3 days, the larvae are fed on royal jelly, a kind of milk secreted from the pharyngeal gland in the worker's head. The larvae increase to 600 times their original size. If a new queen is required in the hive, the cell is enlarged, and these same larvae are fed exclusively on royal jelly until their birth. Ordinary larvae, however, after 6 days, are fed on a mixture of honey and pollen placed in the cell by the workers. They then cap them, and the larvae spin cocoons. Drones are formed in larger cells from unfertilized eggs laid by the queen at will. The most common larvae, those to be workers, change into pupae and begin to take form. After 21 days, the fully grown worker bee starts to emerge. Other workers feed her honey for strength, for she must eat away the capping with her spoon-shaped jaws. She leaves her cocoon behind, emerging furry and soft and striving to steady her legs. She cleans herself, discards the pupal skin, and begins her work cycle. After 2 weeks as a nurse bee and wax producer, she turns to honey ripening and guarding, until finally she leaves the hive as a forager or scout, thus fulfilling her short life cycle of approximately 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
If life ends in the hive, the workers carry the bodies away. At the height of the season, nature must multiply. New queens are formed. The old queen leaves with her followers. They swarm and settle nearby while scouts seek a new home. Another colony forms and begins its life. Man and the bee have worked in harmony since the beginning of recorded time. Man provides a hive for the busy bee and in return harvests the honey. Bees will only sting when annoyed, so smoke is used to quieten them during handling, and protective clothing gives added insurance. All hives are registered with the State Departments of Agriculture. The Langstroth hive is used throughout Australia. The honey is stored in the top supers or larder. The frames are taken out and the bees removed. They're replaced with empty combs. In most cases, the queen and her brood are kept out of the honey larder by using a queen excluder. It takes approximately 300 bees 3 weeks to collect 1 pound of honey. Each frame may contain 6 pounds of honey. With 9 frames to a box, this barrow probably holds 300 pounds of honey. The problem of weight in handling the honey harvest is overcome by the use of large trucks and mechanical hoists. The same mechanical aids are used to move the hives from one site to another when the nectar flow is depleted. Australia has over 6,000 beekeepers. 450 of these, with over 300 hives each, account for 65% of Australia's production. Most beekeepers transport their honey-laden frames from the different hive locations to a central extraction plant. Some beekeepers who travel long distances take a mobile extraction plant with them.
Watch how they get
The
the
barrow load of honey is wheeled directly from the hives to a caravan, which is equipped with a steam-heated knife for uncapping the honeycomb. The uncapped frames are placed in a rotary extractor from which the honey is drawn off and sent direct to the packers. Those apiarists who transport the frames from the hive to a central extraction plant or honey house place the fully laden boxes in a warming room to make the honey easier to process. The frames are wheeled from the warming room to the mechanized uncapper. Here, nature's gold comes to light once more. as part of the industrious bee's work is undone and the wax capping is automatically peeled away. This beeswax is drained of honey and sold for later refining. The fully laden combs are placed in a rotary extractor. The honey from both sides of the comb is thrown clear by centrifugal force. It drains out of the extractor and is pumped at a thermostatically controlled temperature through a gauze filter to remove any extraneous matter. It then passes into storage vats. The honey is decanted from these vats into drums to be sent to the packing plants. In these plants, prior to packing, honey from various locations is placed in a hot room. Again, the temperature is thermostatically controlled to prevent destruction of diastase and other enzymes and retain it at its most workable viscosity. A major part of the supply is blended into commercial color grades by pouring selected varieties into a huge vat where they're mixed together. Color and taste combined.
Right, now, just before we have a little walk around, mainly for the teachers' benefit if they want to take bees a bit further with the children. The bees only live about 6 weeks. They have different jobs to do. They have to clean the cells, feed the young, wax secrete. They go to the door as a guard bee, and the last job is a forager in the field. Now, they're on each job roughly about a week and a half. They move from one job to the next by chemicals that come out in their body and make them want to respond to another set of stimulus. So they do it without intelligence on the individual bee's part. Bees are not intelligent. The real intelligence in a bee colony is in the master plan that's laid down genetically within them that they just carry out using different chemicals and pheromones. So it's their little instinct. They just know what to do. Right, let's have a little walk around very slowly, and we'll have a good look at the bees. And some of you have a look here, and some of the others have a look at the equipment, and then some of you come in here. Themselves, and the other is to defend the colony. So if you ever get stung by a honeybee, and you threaten them in some way, even if you don't realize what you've done, they're only sting if they're threatened. You can see by those photographs on the wall, without nails or gloves or anything. Anybody with any questions?
Can you see through it?
We're going to the tree now, miss.